Don't hate the media, become the media. Seems like an altruistic statement, seems simple enough to understand, and it seems absolutely correct in the light of modern culture and the modern culture war. But as always, context is everything. These words were spoken by a man by the name of Jello Biafra. Jello Biafra is the former lead singer of the Dead Kennedys. I have mixed feelings about Jello Biafra. He was a tremendous influence on me as a spoken word performer in the early days. And back in the day, I totally understand why he came to the conclusions that he did. This man was a warrior against censorship. Feel how you want about the Dead Kennedys material. Feel how you want about them using H.R. Giger's Peniscape as an album cover. Feel how you want about that. This man was actually sought out, oppressed, and persecuted by the evangelical Christians, music censors, and Jesus junkies of the day. The dude fought some hard battles. I understand why the man feels the way he does, and I bear no ill will against him. That said, at his core, he is a leftist by definition. And by definition, like every other leftist, he would not know an ethical and moral absolute principle if it bit him in his sanctimonious ass. He is vehemently opposed to all things that are happening in the culture right now and has publicly advocated more than once for censorship to be used against them. Only he doesn't use the word censorship. He uses the word deplatforming. Let's get back to his quote. Don't hate the media, become the media. At the time, the media were essentially representatives for a normie sort of culture that despised punk bands like the Dead Kennedys, heavy metal bands like Twisted Sister, and all that they represented. Become the media to him meant taking the power away from the corporate structure. The corporate structure that the media works as a de facto propaganda arm for. And that was all right and good until the left became the machine, until the political left controlled the discourse on media. When he said, don't hate the media, become the media, he meant for all his little leftist cronies to go around and do, the things that made punk what it was with regard to the zine culture. If you guys are not familiar with that, get with me. I will carry on the conversation. The whole DIY ethic of punk and the zine revolution, as far as alternative press, was nothing less than spectacular. I have a tremendous library of zines from back in the day, from all ends of the political spectrum. It was a phenomenal thing. It was freedom of speech before the internet gave us true freedom of speech. It was an alternative press before the internet gave us a true alternative press. But now that we have a true alternative press, leftists like Biafra probably aren't too happy. I mean, he couldn't have imagined that once we, quote unquote, became the media, that said media would be dominated by primarily right-leaning figures. Jello Biafra could not possibly have predicted for James O'Keefe and his work at Project Veritas and his work as an individual since being unceremoniously removed from Project Veritas. Jello Biafra could not have predicted someone like Tim Pool, a young man who had the balls to go into combat zones and report from the front lines as an individual without the support of any mainstream media outlet, quite literally risking his life. Nor could he have predicted that Tim Pool would come around to leaning to the right. He certainly could not have predicted for the rise of a man like Alex Jones, a man with one of the most fervent followings. And you can feel how you want about Alex. And no matter how you feel about Alex, you're probably right. But the point is, when Biafra said become the media, he could not have possibly predicted the rise of a man like Alex Jones, who would truly fly in the face of the establishment, getting it wrong as often as he got it right, but never wavering from the mission to take it to that corporate structure, to take it to the war machine, the same war machine that Biafra professed to hate. And he certainly could have predicted the reach of a man like Joe Rogan. Everything that Joe Rogan represents is anathema to a man like Jello Biafra. He's a speaker of truth, but he is also devoutly masculine, well-muscled, exemplifying every single thing about what is known to be masculine within the context of Western civilization. He is loud, he is belligerent, he is unapologetic, and he is totally male. And now, not because of his own shift, but because the Overton window has shifted around him, now this man, Joe Rogan, with a reach in the tens of millions, not only has become a multimillionaire, but has become the face for independent media. And he certainly couldn't have predicted that independent media would be enabled by the reach of one social media platform and the one man who had the courage to make it happen. People like Biafra talk about free speech. People like Elon get out and make it happen. No, he couldn't have predicted for all the right-leaning figures of the alternative press. What he was hoping for was more of, well, these guys, the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian. Only one problem with that. These guys were the forefront of the left's alternative press. They were the tip of the spear for the left in the alternative media sphere. And yet, if you look at both their Twitter feeds lately, and let me take a deep breath because I'm having a hard time processing this myself. Cenk is almost sounding like one of us. And Anna Kasparian has come almost completely around. Don't take my word for it. Look at their Twitter feeds. It's amazing. Why? Because they're interacting with real people on the other side of the political spectrum for the very first time. Something that, even in his old age, Jello Biafra hasn't really done. And what people like Cenk and Anna Kasparian are finding out is something that I've said on here for a long, long time. Fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. Now, what happens to the legacy media when they don't get that truth? The legacy media loses relevance. People get tired of being lied to by that propaganda ministry, so they turn to the alternative press. They turn to alternative media. The legacy media is losing relevance. They lie to us about wars where the stakes are so high that literally the fate of humanity hangs in the balance. They lie to us about a respiratory infection with a 99.8% survival rate and manage to drive the fear narrative hard enough to make otherwise intelligent people shut down their entire process of critical thought. When you are counting on these people and they lie to you about things that are so obviously false, why would it be any wonder that people would seek out James O'Keefe or a Joe Rogan or any of the figures on the intellectual dark web? The truth remains, fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. I think it's hardwired into our DNA. And I think it's tied to a fact reflected in a quote that you've heard me use before, and I will use it 100 times again because not only is it accurate, it is one of my personal favorites, and it comes from pioneering psychonaut Aldous Huxley. The course of every intellectual if he pursues his journey long and unflinchingly enough, ends in the obvious, from which the non-intellectuals have never stirred. What they're finding out is that in the long run, they're a hell of a lot more to their chagrin of us non-intellectuals. And they, as intellectuals, are abandoning their responsibility to pursue that journey long and unflinchingly enough. They'd rather stay halfway through the curve so it doesn't have to end in the obvious. Because when it does end in the obvious, they realize that we are the ones who have been right all along. And in the current political and cultural climate, they're finding out that we are no longer willing to apologize for that fact. You can't shame us down anymore, folks. Now it's time to either step aside or step up, chin down and knuckles up. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else is on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough because I got one coming up. Certainly not employers. That is for the sake of you docs happy Antifa maggots out there. Although if you look at the bumper stickers on the cars in the job site parking lot, you're going to find that doxing wouldn't do you any good anyway. In any case, those thoughts and opinions have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to stretch open that unwilling maw and choke you to death if necessary, with an unrepentant, unapologetic dose of truth cock. Welcome back, boys and girls. It's time for the Tuesday special edition of the Sunday Sermon. Gonna be a short and sweet one today, man. I'm not gonna hold you guys up for too long. It's Thanksgiving week. You got stuff to do. Right now, I need to know who's in. Everybody in for the drum roll, please. All right, man. Coming hard, charging out of the starting gate as we always do, with a little rock and roll from the gut-stomping rock and roll band Red Desert, from the smoldering embers and crumbling ruins of the once great American city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We haven't gotten to the inauguration yet. We may live to see Minnesota go up in flames once again. I hope these guys are in a safe zone. In any case, the name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. I'm feeling pretty good about this week. Let's see how it rolls. Go ahead and jump it off with the roll call, see who's on board. And, of course, Brother Clem. Good talking to you, man. We need to continue that conversation on that and some other topics, man. And I've got the whole week pretty much, so we should reestablish communications. Good to have you on board. The OG Sinner Sister herself, the Divine Miss Emmy. Happy to see you. OG Prophet of Doom and Reverend Ranger, Mr. Dennis Weimer. Happy to have you on board, man. I was looking at what you posted earlier. I love how entering the chat on Red Sermons asking to abide by the community guidelines. They don't know this community, right? Otherwise, they would probably actually know. You know what? StreamYard wouldn't pull me. StreamYard wouldn't pull me. YouTube definitely would. Facebook already has on a number of fronts, but StreamYard would keep me going for anybody who would host the damn thing. We'll see how it pans out. See who else is here. Brother Bill Wade. Good to see you, brother. Glad you made it. God bless you, man. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving coming up and everything is planned and you are surrounded by family and friends and love and laughter and all that good stuff, brother. You are missed. Hopefully we see you at the Bratwalk coming up in March. Should be a couple of weeks before my birthday. See what we can put together for that. I chatted with Doug a little bit earlier. He's going to make it out for Bratwalk, and we're going to see what else we can put together. We got Carrie on board, which means that Roman is here somewhere. Let me see. Where you at? Carrie, first of all, thanks for being here. There's Doug. Good evening, brothers. Enjoying some eggnog and spending time with the wife. Looking forward to the sermon. Brother, you already know. I'm going to spare you because we're in mixed company. Me and eggnog, bro. Eggnog for me is like beat up a stranger in front of his kids level. Man, I will do horrible and amazing things for the right amount of eggnog. It is just... it's magical, brother. It is absolutely magical. There is Brother Roman. Happy you made it on board. Brother Sonny, glad you're here, brother. Looking forward to doing the deep dive into that material I'm not going to, you know what? I will go ahead and spoil the surprise, man. We are in the final stages. Brother Sonny's book is on the home stretch, the first of several that are going to be released. It took a little bit of poking and prodding, maybe just a little bit of poking and prodding to get him to come out of his shell and realize how incredibly gifted he is as a writer and a speaker, as well as a coach and a teacher and an operator and a brother in Christ. I'm happy to see it happening, brother, and I'm glad you made it out. Glad you made it out. Brother Wayne Sharp, we go all the way back to Fred T. Ford High School up yonder in the holler, Talbot County, North Carolina. Yes, sirree, Bob. Bartland, I like that. Technically, we refer to it as Planet Bart around here, but it's pretty cool. Let me see, Dennis. Dennis says he's rolling with. Yeah, I have eggnog right now. Roman, yeah, he did write a song called. I got to figure out a way to download that, man. It's on my laptop. I got to figure out a way to get that file over to this computer so we can actually throw that out right around Christmas time. But Roman, you guys know that he does the watercolor stuff, but he is also an incredibly talented musician. And, he does some heavy metal projects here and there. And I think he was just messing around in the studio one day. He did a song about his love for eggnog. And I'll spare you the whole thing because it's really funny. You got to take it all in. But his love for eggnog was such that he managed to push to the side an offer of really wild, freaky sex with an amazing sex kitten. Because, he's going to do it. But let me finish my eggnog first. I feel exactly the same way, brother. I feel exactly the same way. Joke I used to tell, and I'm really not so sure that I'm joking, is that if they could make semen taste like eggnog, I would switch teams. I really don't think I'm joking about that. Hopefully that'll never get tested, but fairly true story, I think. Anyway, I love it, and I love that it's holiday eggnog season. It's a fantastic thing all the way around. Oh my goodness. 2025 is looking busy. Looking at the list in front of me, 24 multi-day classes and seminars. I'm already tired. Brother, you know what? Look, you've earned the accolades, man. You are in the position that you are in right now, Brother Sonny, because of the work that you put in. And honestly, guys, y'all need to, if you are in Texas, and I want you guys to read this again, 2025 is looking busy. Looking at the list here, 24 multi-day classes and seminars. I'm already tired. Some of you guys who are here have already had the honor and privilege of training with Brother Sonny. And if you haven't, and you were in, and particularly if you were in Texas and you haven't, I really want to virtually just reach through the bandwidth right now and grab you by the collar and shake the hell out of you, because it's you have a tremendous asset down there, and for people who understand. Thankfully, maybe we have a bit of a 4-year reprieve right now. We're going to get into that a little bit later on in the sermon, but for people who understand the direction that the world is taking and the momentum of that, I should stress, no matter who gets elected, the momentum of that is still working on the level of entropy. It's that consistent decline. You should look up a 4-part painting series called The Course of Empire, and just ponder it. Maybe if you microdose, you should go up to a macro dose and just ponder that 4-panel series of paintings, The Course of Empire. Nothing is going to stem the tide of that. Okay, period. We will get reprieves, but without a severe and prolonged battle for the soul of civilization, nothing is going to stem the tide of that. Yes, God bless America for reelecting Donald Trump, and God bless his cabinet picks and all the things that they've got going on. But first of all, if you are a devout Christian, no matter how that election went, we were going to be okay because Boss Man's got this. You understand that. Thank God that he was elected. Thank God for all the things that are happening in the culture. But understand, don't put your trust in earthly powers, man. Don't do it. You can be thankful for a 4-year reprieve. Anyway, I've gotten off topic. The thing is, if you understand that never-ending spiral, that never-ending downward spiral of where civilization has been headed and how much lower it's going to have to get before we start that long climb out of the abyss, you need to be training. You need to be training to make yourself harder to kill. And that, just like with the prime directives, just like with, living the three, that strength has not just got to be here. This is good. This is good. Yes, Sonny, I actually did hand switches there. All of these things are good. They're great skills to learn, but Sonny's method of instruction is going to move you on much deeper levels. And I don't just say that because he is a close and dear friend and because he is a brother in Christ. I say it because I believe in the man. I don't shill for anyone. I have plenty of friends that I would not go to bat for their particular profession, because they either haven't put in the time, or their skill level isn't where it needs to be, or uh, it wouldn't serve a particular person's purposes. I have plenty of friends. When I'm going to bat for someone like that, you better know in your heart that I believe it in my heart. All right. And so if you are in Texas, you need to look up Sonny Pazika's Forward Training Concepts. You need to get your ass up to Fort Honey Badger and spend some time embracing the suck. Fear Inoculum, I think, is already sold out for this year. Tragically, because I think I can think of 3 people on right now that would get a lot of good out of that transformative class. But the tactical classes are still open. You want to learn how to use your bare hands. You want to learn how to use bladed edged weapons. You want to learn how to better exercise the manipulation of your firearm, whatever platform you're on. You want to make yourself harder to kill. But beyond making yourself harder to kill, particularly for my brothers in Christ, you are following the scriptural admonition, because you are supposed to be the protector. You are supposed to be the leader and the protector of all of the people that you care about, whether it is your wife or your children or your circle, whatever that is. You are scripturally admonished to step the hell up. And if you are failing that, God forgives. Therefore, I am admonished to forgive. But don't think you're not going to get the side eye, right? And I'll be the first to tell you that I give that side eye to myself as often as not. There are plenty of times that I have fallen short of what I know that I am capable of, or have been unable to attend a class that I knew I really needed to be there for, but just for whatever reason could not make it happen. And I hold myself to the same standard, which means that I've got to bump it up out in the garage. If I can't get down to Fort Honey Badger and do it, then I've got to do what I can do on my own accord, which means spending twice as much time hitting the bags. And Sonny, you'll be happy about this. I've gotten I would say 90% away from the barbell and dumbbell work. I do one core exercise per body part. I do one high intensity set to failure, Mike Mincer style, bench press, squat, military press, and deadlift. And I do that. But I'm not doing like the full get big stuff anymore. I've picked up the kettlebells again, the battle ropes. I've broken the 500-pound tractor tire out of retirement. I've been flipping that. I've been working drag sleds. I've been working body weight exercise that some crazy Russian taught me, and trying to get my body aligned for the fight rather than move heavy stuff. In any case, you guys have a tremendous asset there for Honey Badger. And he's going to take you to a level closer to where you need to be, right? We all just acknowledge that you suck and endeavor to suck less. Again, some crazy Russian instilled that in me a long time ago. So please, guys, if you can, Sonny Pazika's Forward Training Concepts, go look it out. What is this about? Fear Inoculum? It's way oversold. Limit of 10. We will have 16 or 17 people at Fear Inoculum. My goodness. That is, wow. Okay. Even assuming that we're probably going to have 2 or 3 drop as it gets closer, that's quite a few people for that Fear Inoculum class. I wonder if they I wonder if they're all ready. That's a trick question. None of us are ever ready. None of us are ever ready. Not for fear inoculum. Uh, but God bless him, man. I guess what that speaks to, for those of you who are watching and paying attention, is the fact that his reputation is starting to precede him, that the demand is out there because people know what he's bringing to the table. If you want to go do a basic pistol class, you can do that close to home. If you want to take a basic rifle class, you can do that close to home. If you want to look up a Filipino martial arts guy who has a class and teaches, teenagers to 30-year-olds in your neighborhood, you can go and you can do that. Or you can spend the money, devote the time, and get bombarded with principles and information that are seriously going to shape not only the way you fight, but the way that you look at the world. So do that. Sonny Pazika's Forward Training Concepts. And that's that. Period. End of statement. Done. And Sonny, I hope you guys are planning on an outstanding Thanksgiving. And this is the part where Sonny chimes in with the hate comments. I have already turned over my bird. This would be the perfect segue into the sponsor shout outs. Yeah, Clem. Yeah, dude, I saw a couple of the videos and I heard from one of the other participants that everybody was out in deep water trying not to drown. And that's exactly where you need to be if you want to suck less. Anyway, let me get the sponsor shout outs out of the way and the Sunny torture out of the way. Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest, period, end of statement, done. Yeah, but what about sit down, shut up, you're wrong. Talking about my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison. Dusty is the pit master over there. I just went yesterday and dropped off my holiday bird. This will be the 10th year that Dusty and Casey are smoking the holiday bird for the Bart Bunker. The biggest one we were able to find was a 24 pounder. Unfortunately, I think the record that we had over there was we had a 29 pounder one year. We had a 29 pounder one year, but this year, 24 pounder, still a good sized bird. They are smoking holiday turkeys. You may be in too late for Thanksgiving, but they will be smoking them again for Christmas, guys. So if you're in the Spokane area, go out there and see them. Plus, the Viking Longship is out sailing the asphalt seas. They've got the smoker trailer setting up, doing catering gigs and all that other stuff. And Casey, of course, one of the brothers, combat vet, check out his book. Freaks of a Feather. It is a combat memoir that started out as a suicide note, and that should be all I should have to tell you. He's an incredibly gifted writer. That book is available on Amazon. Also need to give a shout out to Roman and his lovely wife Carrie and Hallie and Roxy and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. Roman Freely is available as a book on Amazon under Roman Riva, and also From Dork to Pimp Daddy. He's got 2 books available on Amazon. One is basically a biography about his journey, and the other is his actual watercolor work. You can pick up either one of them on Amazon, and if you go over to opiumtales.com, you can get his own particular brand of testosterone-driven commentary as well, and you will start to put together in your head why it is that Roman and I have been dearest of friends since 1988. One day we need to tell that story of how we actually met, Roman, because that's a great story. But anyhow, so let's jump into it, shall we? First of the bullet points. I kind of got sidetracked there for a minute. Jello Biafra's unintended consequences. I touched on it in the opener. I gave basically the Reader's Digest version of the opener. I actually have I've met and hung out with Jello Biafra on a couple of occasions over the years. You guys remember, my misspent youth. I ran with the hardcore stiff arm salute crowd. When I came out of that, what got me out of that was some very inauspicious circumstances that left me empty, politically, ideologically, socially. It left me with a whole lot of trust issues and things like that. So I did the Bart thing, the young Bart thing, and I bounced completely over to the other side, and I did a hard left. for a number of years. And as a result of that, it took me into circles where I was running with people like Rafael Renteria and Travis Morales, the guy that basically instigated the Moody Park riots down in Houston. We were coffee buddies. I was spending time with, though I didn't subscribe to the ideology. Travis used to tell me all the time, he was like, Bart, I can't figure you out. You got one foot firmly planted on the right and one foot firmly planted on the left. And I told him, I was like, Travis, that means I got both of them firmly planted on the ground. But Travis knew I would do what I could. If I felt like the cause was just, I would do whatever I could to help it out. If I was ideologically opposed to what they were doing, then I'm not going to show up. And you've just got to deal with that. I can be a tremendous asset, but I don't bow and grovel for anybody. In any case, through those circles, I got introduced to Jello Biafra. I got taken out to a spoken word show that he was doing and got backstage, got to interact with him afterwards. Jello's a fascinating guy. I was never a punk rock guy. Anybody here? I know some of you guys in the chat were like punk rock guys. I was a heavy metal kid, but wasn't a really big fan of the Dead Kennedys. But I was always very civil liberties minded, particularly where freedom of speech, freedom of the press is concerned. And I remember during the 1980s where the Dead Kennedys got basically persecuted by the Reagan era Justice Department. They got grilled, man, and that was back when you had Tipper Gore. So just to show you that the censorship train has always at least had one track running through the Democrat and leftist camp. You had Tipper Gore. You had Cheney's old lady was in on it, and a number of other congressional wives, the Parents Music Resource Center, and everything like that. The DOJ came down hard on the Dead Kennedys and essentially bankrupted them. They were looking at prison time on an obscenity trial because of. You guys are familiar with the work of H.R. Giger. If you're not familiar with the work of H.R. Giger, I could show you like the left side of my chest over here, or either one of my forearms. He is the guy that designed the creature for the film Alien. Well-known artist, and he had a landscape, basically a landscape of dicks. All right, let's just call it what it is, and it was called Peniscape, and it was put on the inside cover of one of the Dead Kennedys albums. And being that everybody was super anti-porn happy back then, and the people that I refer to as the Jesus junkies were in charge, and they were very censorship happy, they came down on him like a 20-pound sledge. It was terrible. The guy got put through a lot. He got put on trial. He got his life upended. The band wound up splitting up. Again, they were totally bankrupted. Nobody even wanted to take the case pro bono initially because it was just too hot to handle. In the same reason that, or in the same vein rather, that the left has co-opted that now with their lawfare. That was lawfare in its infancy. It was the same tactics. So I can have sympathy for Jello Biafra as a human being. I can have respect for Jello Biafra for what he did for the sake of the First Amendment in standing his ground rather than rolling over and playing dead. I can have respect and sympathy and appreciation for all kinds of people while being vehemently opposed to who they are and what they represent. I did a sermon a while back, and the theme was Larry Flint and Harry Potter. And of course, you guys know the author of the Harry Potter series, and she has been amazing because she's gotten the censorship flack from both ends over the course of decades. She's run the full spectrum. Now, these are two diametrically opposed individuals, but I look at Larry Flint. Larry Flint finished life the way Elvis did, comatose and bodyguarded. Despicable human being by any measure. I mean, just exploitive and ignorant and vulgar and crass and just a horrible human being. I mean, like the epitome of everything that we associate with the negative end of white trash. And he managed to make himself a multimillionaire doing it. I'm not hating on the man's money. J.K. Rowling just kept doing what she's doing. J.K. Rowling is the person that you think of when you think of a First Amendment hero. When I think of First Amendment heroes, obviously I think of J.K. Rowling, and I was very late to the party on J.K. Rowling, by the way, because I never was a fan of any of her work. It wasn't until I started really doing a deep dive on her as an individual and all the persecution that she had endured before I started really respecting um, what Rowling was and what she represented to the First Amendment. I've always held Flint up as a First Amendment hero. Always have. Jello Biafra, another First Amendment hero. Both of them, however, having said that, yeah, Flint was a smart enough guy. If you guys haven't taken the time to see the film, The People versus Larry Flint, it really doesn't do it justice. His whole story. I mean, he's just backwoods Arkansas white trash, having sex with farm animals and just a despicable human being by any stretch of the imagination. And he managed to parlay that, because only in America can you parlay that into a multi-million-dollar porn industry, dude. I'm not hating on the man's money. I having had my own struggles with pornography and things like that, it's not something that you can, it's not something I'm cheerleading for, but his importance cannot be understated. If we don't believe in freedom of speech for people we despise, we don't believe in it at all. If you can tell me who that quote is from, somebody in the chat, tell me who that quote is from. No Google Sheets, and I'll be very, very impressed. If we don't believe in freedom of speech for people we despise, we don't believe in it at all. That's another person that I got to meet and hang out with on a couple of occasions, but I'm not going to tell you who it is. Here's the point. He took a bullet for free speech, right? This is a guy that took a bullet for free speech from the CIA, all right? From the CIA. Let's just call it what it is. It was someone within the intelligence community in all likelihood that shot him, which is why the guy's never been caught. Yes, Dennis Weimer, you are the winner. If we don't believe in freedom of speech for people we despise, we don't believe in it at all. That was the words of Professor Noam Chomsky. And Noam kind of fell off the wagon even during the COVID thing. But again, I'm getting way off topic here. The point is this: Larry Flint was shot and paralyzed from the chest down, waist down. Took a high-powered rifle round for now. He wasn't taking a stand for the principle of free speech. Let's call it what it is. He wanted to be able to make millions of dollars by peddling filth, right? That doesn't matter to me. That doesn't matter to me. What he represents matters to me. Misattributed to Voltaire, but yes, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And this is a principle, Clem. This is a principle that I hold, even if the courtesy isn't returned, right? That's the problem that we've run into with the left. Freedom of speech and compromise, both of those things are a one-way street. Larry Flint took a bullet for the First Amendment, okay? No, what he took a bullet for was wanting to make millions of dollars peddling filth. And I'm sure that bullet and his paralysis was worth the cost to him in the long run. But as a result, he became a hero for the First Amendment. This is what people are willing to do to neutralize speech with which they disagree. Do you understand that? And that goes both ways. That absolutely goes both ways. The people that bankrupted Jello Biafra, the people that went after him, they were willing to do, and had it come to that, they were willing to put that man in prison or kill him, right? To shut him up. It starts out small because usually people roll over in the early stages. When you have someone who actually stands and say, I will not be bullied, That's somebody you got to back, even if you despise what they're about. Politically, I was with Jello Biafra when I was like hard leftist, and then once I came back to my senses, quickly parted ways with that. But I've still got respect for the man. Um, I may not have any respect for Larry Flint, may he rest in peace, as a human being, but for what he did for the First Amendment, you have to have respect for that, and you have to keep that as a moral principle even when they don't return the favor, which brings us back to Jello Biafra. Jello Biafra during that day, because everybody hated the media. Everybody who was left of center hated the media because the media represented the power establishment. They didn't represent the right. They didn't represent, they represented the war machine. They represented the corporate industrial complex. They represented big pharma. They represented moneyed and powered interests. And at that time, the left didn't have any real power outside of the universities. So, of course, they raged against the media. And that's when Biafra made the quote about, the, uh, don't hate the media, become the media. Everybody took that to heart. That is a great thing because, especially now, when he said it, he could not have possibly realized what it was going to come to that was before even desktop publishing had become a thing when he said that. It was like desktop publishing was just becoming a thing. And of course, the zine movement, and you guys should look that up. The zine movement. You guys should look that up. It was a whole alternative press, and you had everything from these small little pamphlets that were basically 8.5 by 11s that were like gate folded with a single staple in the middle, with political screeds or conspiracy theories or alternative politics or any of this thing. It was an alternative press. And for people who wanted to really sink their teeth in, like the normies wouldn't have anything to do with it. Like, Johnny Marr, Murder Can Be Fun. Google that. Johnny Marr, Murder Can Be Fun. That was a zine that I was a huge fan of and would always like seek that out. Paranoia Magazine started out as a zine. Mondo 2000 started out as a zine. Google any of these things, man. There was like a whole vibrant community. And while you're on the Google train, Google Fact Sheet 5. Fact Sheet 5 was itself a zine of zines. It was basically like a catalog of zines broken down by category. You had special interests, you had conspiracy, you had politics, you had this, you had that, you had music. And Fact Sheet 5 would come out and you could send a letter. I know this is crazy, but we used to use, let me see if I've got this. Yeah, let me see if I can find this. Yeah. We used to use things like this. This is called a pen. Yeah. And we would write stuff on paper. Yeah, we would write stuff on paper, and it was the craziest thing. You could write letters to these people, and you could send them money orders or actual cash, because some of these zines were like a couple of bucks. You throw a couple of dollars into an envelope and send it off to some guy in California that you'd never met, and they would mail you back a copy of their zine. It was alternative press. It was what Jello Biafra had admonished them to do, become the media. And there was a vibrant underground press. And when the internet hit, when the internet hit, right? Just blew it wide open. I got to tell you, man, back in the day, I got a Xerox copy of the MJ12 documents from a zine producer, and I had to jump through so many hoops just to find this guy, and got this Xerox copy, mimeographed copy of the MJ12 documents and stuff like that. So back in the day, we're like, if you wanted to be conspiracy, you really had to work for it. And then the internet blew open, and now all these things are just a click away. How fantastic. And I'm sure Jello Biafra was very happy with the prospect of that, about everybody becoming the media. But what he hadn't taken into account is that fundamentally people are suckers for the truth. And unfortunately, the truth was that the culture was undergoing a shift. And that shift has continued. And gradually, as the political left grabbed more and more corporate power, they became the machine. This has all come to a head, particularly within the last 4 to 8 years, but they have become the machine. And suddenly these same voices were tamping it down. Why? Because becoming the media was a tool that was accessible to everyone. I mean, look at me, dude. I'm a fat, toothless cripple, crane operator with some opinions, and I can get on here and reach as many people as are out there to hear me. Literally everyone in the world can find my videos. It's right there. I can self-publish a book and put it out the way that Roman has, you know, the way that Neil did before he lost his mind, right? And put my voice out there for everybody to hear. I can literally become the media. I can look at what my observations are of the world that is going on around me, and I can relay it to people who might not otherwise be connected, right? What an incredible gift. What an incredible tool to have at our disposal. But fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. And the more the mainstream legacy media, the CBS, ABC, NBCs of the world, the Fox News of the world, the more they became dug in carrying establishment narratives, the more they pushed people to alternative media. You guys can remember a day where the only real high profile alternative media guy on who was right leaning libertarian with a conspiratorial bent speaking truth to the military industrial complex was Alex Jones. Putting stuff in the water to turn the freaking frogs gay, you know, and he developed an underground following and it got bigger. I remember the first time I got turned on to Alex Jones was probably 2002, 2003, and I just happened to catch a documentary, one of his earliest documentaries that was being broadcast on the Houston Cable Access Channel. I had never heard of the guy. I found him online. You give a guy like that reach, and then he's transmitting on, then he's putting out his broadcast on shortwave stations. WWCR, I may be wrong on this, Google fact check me. WWCR 5.810 shortwave. It was a religious-based shortwave radio network. And you could listen to guys like him. You could listen to guys like Mark Kornke, Mark from Michigan, who like faded into obscurity, all these other things. We could become the media, and then we did. And because fundamentally people are suckers for the truth, when they go to the legacy media and they get lied to, for a whole lot of people, all it took was the lies that they'd already been told. As soon as they heard that there was an alternative to that, they bounced right over, right? Some people had to get lied to a little more. Some people really, really, really wanted to hang on to that lie because it's easier than admitting that they're wrong. But eventually, especially through the COVID lunacy, there was an old joke. I always used to say everything is tinfoil hat until the documents are declassified. There was an old joke about what's the difference between conspiracy theory and accepted mainstream news. And the punchline was about 4 years. Only the punchline kept getting shorter. 2 years, a year, 6 months. By the end of the COVID fiasco, the punchline was probably a couple of weeks tops. The establishment has to lie because their job is to carry the narrative, and the narrative is itself a lie. So it pushed people into the alternative press because by this time, the left, the hard, radical left, had fully come to fruition and assumed their place at the mantle of power. They had become the machine. They had become the institutional powers. All of the regular middle-of-the-road normies who might have considered themselves liberals shook off the fence a long time ago. The only people that remain who are screaming to preserve the legacy media, who are screaming disinformation and misinformation and, this, that, and the other, all the accusations that are hurled against the alternative press are the super, super, super hardcore lefties. And you can bet your ass that the minute any mainstream media outlet bounces back to the right, even a little bit, those guys are going to drop off. Those guys are going to drop off. The ones who have already dropped off are not coming back. Legacy media is dead, is what I'm saying. If all of legacy media right now took a hard right, everybody else who's already found the alternative, they're not coming back. Nobody who was a Trump voter, who has a blue check X account, who is a fan of Alex Jones or Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan or any of those people are going to come back to legacy media, even if they took a hard right like 20 minutes ago. And the last 7 hard lefties that are still going, Rachel Maddow speaks the truth, they will drop off too. It's a foregone conclusion. Legacy media is dead. And we have followed the admonition of Jello Biafra. We have become the media. I haven't read any recent interviews with Jello Biafra. The last one, I think the most recent interview that I read with him was 2017, and he was all about this is how we fight Trump, and made some alluded to deplatforming people, making sure that people understand disinformation and misinformation and all of these things. This was before the pandemic, by the way. We have become the media. And the media, because people are fundamentally suckers for the truth, gravitates right. Not because we're gravitating right, but because the Overton window has shifted around us. Except for my return to the faith, I am essentially the same guy that I was after the election in 2016. I truly am. A lot of people will have a hard time believing that, but in fact, I'm gonna see if I can pull something up real quick from memories a couple of years ago, and it's not going to interfere with the program. I can scroll and do that at the same time. The Overton window has shifted around. Aside from my return to the faith, I'm exactly the same person politically, about 90%, the same person that I was before the 2016 election. And what you see is that the policies that they tried to push don't work. We've gotten to see that work in real time. We have majorities of the American public, particularly the American voting public, as evidenced by the results of a couple of weeks ago, that you can no longer hold it back. Everything has fallen. Get to see the results of what they're doing in real time, and we outright reject it. Again, coming back to fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. I just found this. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it verbatim. I'm just going to take this. This was November of 2016. November of 2016. The blog entry that I wrote was called Repulsed, Resigned, and Resolved. I am exactly the same person for this ridiculous election cycle. None of my core values have wavered, but the reactions to the result have thrown the rift between thinking people and party over principle grazers into stark contrast. I am at a loss. I was never a Trump supporter, and at that point, that was absolutely true. You go back and look at my posts from before November of 2016, I was scathing against Donald Trump. I hated Hillary, but I wasn't sold on Trump. Let me continue. I was never a Trump supporter. In spite of my abject hatred of Hillary Clinton, I did, however, much more than a lot of my friends on the left, and certainly more than the mainstream media, actually listened to what he actually said, not the doctored sound bites released by the same media that chastises the right for doctored sound bites. The only thing I am left with is that, for all their often correct painting of the entire right with a broad brush, the left's sanctimonious lip service of inclusion, love, and worst of all, grits teeth, tolerance is clearly, transparently, demonstrably, and now irrefutably bullshit. They are blinded by their own arrogance and blind to their own ignorance. They continue to choke the life out of a long dead narrative, and when the facts don't fit, they have demonstrated a willingness to make that square peg fit that round hole by burning new corners into it. For all their speculation of what the right might do, all we have to go on is what the left is doing, and it has left me feeling overwhelming disgust and a distaste for every pus-dripping lie that they can spew from their maw while smiling at you, calm in their self-assured moral high ground as they demonstrate a willingness to burn it all down if the great unwashed cannot be forced to see the rightness of their cause. We're going to be revisiting noble cause corruption here in a bit. This is not acceptable. My reluctance to do sides or teams is something that I've clung to with the tenacity of a pit bull on meth. But at this historical juncture, one side does not need for me to declare them to be my enemy. They have, based on misunderstanding, lack of self-reflection, ignorance, arrogance, abject fear, intellectual cowardice, and innate weakness, gone out of their way to declare that it is me who is their enemy. Thank you for clarifying your position. If this is the label with which I have been hung, all for having the temerity to look at the same set of facts and come to a different conclusion than you and all your enlightenment, then it is a label which I wholly embrace, and God help you for having hung me with it. That was the moment. That was the moment that I completely broke with I don't do sides. I was a Ron Paul guy in 2012. I don't do sides. The left sucks. The right sucks. I didn't declare the left my enemy. They defined me as theirs because I had the temerity to think differently. We, the great unwashed, we, the deplorables, we, in spite of our intellectual betters, we, failing to hear the words of their experts, we, in our ignorance and our clinging to guns and clinging to religion and all these other things, we have been declared the enemy. Cool. We can embrace that label. You know what else we have become? The media, just like you told us. There is nothing stopping anyone on the left, any of the Jello Biafra crowd. There's nothing stopping them from presenting their ideas on X or YouTube or Facebook. If anything, every platform except for X makes it more in favor of them presenting their, and yet in that open marketplace of ideas, their ideology cannot survive. Why? Because fundamentally people are suckers for the truth. So in urging us to become the media, and it wasn't just Jello Biafra. I mean, a lot of people in the punk rock movement and the zine movement and a whole lot of people on the political left, whatever. Hippies that came up in the 60s. You know, Rolling Stone started out as an alternative press publication. Since then, it's gotten folded into the machine. Point being, they pushed us, become the media. If you don't like being fed lies by the media, become the media and speak the truth. We have. And regardless of your intellectual gymnastics and your fact checks and your Snopes and your, you guys are disinformation and misinformation, and anyone who questions the official narrative is a Russian puppet and a Kremlin stooge, and you're a horrible person and an ist and a phobe and it's all falling apart. Nothing holds. We'll shame you. We'll call you an ist or a phobe. No one cares. Why? Again, fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. So the unintended consequences because the majority of those people are suckers for the truth, are principled people. The hardcore leftists who would not know an absolute principle if it bit them in their sanctimonious ass are left in the cold. They wanted to become the media so they could overwhelm the system and become part of it, take control of it, so they could exercise their ideology on everyone else. And it worked for a good little while. That season has passed. Shame will no longer shut us up. Fear will no longer shut us up. And sometimes the fear is of the shame. I don't want to be thought ignorant. I don't want to be thought racist. I'm afraid that if I say this, I could lose my job. Nobody's afraid anymore. If I say this, I could get canceled. Nobody's afraid anymore. We have become the media. And once we had the courage to take that step, we found what we've said all along. Fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth, and they are gravitating to it in droves. Feel how you want about Trump. It's not about the man. It's about what his election represents. More people being suckers for the truth. More people seeing through the lies. You look at a man like Tucker Carlson. Fox News cut him loose, and the left rejoiced. Ha ha ha! Their top rated guy. Ha ha ha! They cut him loose, and all I could think of was Obi-Wan in front of Darth on the Death Star. You cannot win, Darth. If you cut me down, I will become more powerful than you can imagine. Everybody thought Glenn Beck was a fool. Look how The Blaze is doing in ratings compared to Fox News. Everybody thought Tucker Carlson was a fool. Look how his ratings are doing. Everybody thought Joe Rogan was a dude bro. Nobody's going to follow that guy. Look at his ratings. Look at the following of the Jordan Peterson podcast. The mainstream legacy media did everything they could to undermine the greatness that is Jordan Peterson. I know people that still believe in their heart of hearts that they have any idea what Jordan Peterson is about. They've never listened to anything he's ever done. They've never read a single book that he's ever written. They tried everything to crush Dr. Peterson. He was a transphobe. He was a bigot. He was, and I quote, a dumb person's idea of a smart person. Well, that dumb person's idea of a smart person has a much, much larger draw. I know you're going to brush it off as, well, there's a lot more dumb people than there are smart people. Yeah, and that's absolutely true. But I'd suggest, just as a favor, that you examine the possibility, however slight, that you could have been misinformed and you have no idea. It's easy to dismiss the fact that people are shifting to the other side as bigotry and hatred and ignorance and all of these other things. But what if there was something bigger going on? Hatred, fear, bigotry, right? That's why people are gravitating to it. That's why there was record turnout for Hispanics voting for the guy who you spent the last 8 years telling us hated Mexicans. That's why there was historical upsurge in votes from black men for the same guy you've been telling us for the last 8 years is a racist and a bigot and hates black people. I would that you would take a step back and just think, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? And take a look. But whether you do or not is inconsequential to me at the time. It's already shifted. It's already done. That box has been opened and there's no stuffing it back into the box. We have become the media. We have become the voice of truth. And all we had to do to be the voice of truth was speak it. Damnedest thing. So for those on the left, especially the ones that said, "Well, if you don't like the way social media works, if you don't like Facebook censorship, well, build your own social media. If you don't like the way we do it, just build your own." We didn't build our own. We tried to build our own. 3 different times we tried to build our own, and they were all squashed systematically by the same system, and the left rejoiced. So Elon basically said, "Okay, I'll buy one. If you're not going to let us build one, I'll just go ahead and buy one. This one's got legs. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to trim 80% of its staff, and I'm going to make it run." Enabling millions to once again become the media. If you mean what you say about become the media, if you mean what you say about the importance of everyone having free speech, not just the people you like, then you should never be alarmed, ever, at the growth of that very phenomenon. You should be enthused. You should be exhilarated. And while you're being exhilarated at the growth of that phenomenon, you should maybe take a look if more people are falling on the other side and just entertain momentarily the idea that you could have been wrong. Either way, we own it, we've won it, and we will carry it and take back the culture with you, without you, or if necessary, over you. Take some time to reflect, and maybe we can meet in the middle. That's bullet point number 1, the unintended consequences of Jello Biafra, which does actually lead me perfectly well as a segue into redefining subject matter experts. In fact, I think the two are the same. While I'm on the rant, we'll just go ahead and cover it. Subject matter experts. What is a subject matter expert? I thought, well, let's look up the dictionary definition of that first, particularly when we're talking about now that we've become the media and we are speaking the truth and people are coming to us for, advice in, well, this thing is going on in the world. How should I react to it? What lens should I be viewing this through? A subject matter expert, by definition, is a knowledge and experience in a specific field or work process. They are recognized experts in a particular subject, topic, or system. They are knowledgeable about professional standards, requirements, and practices. They are lifelong learners who specialize in one unique aspect of the job. I think that's a fairly accurate definition. There's only one thing that they left out, one thing that I would have tagged on the end to be a true subject matter expert. All of these things apply, but I would amend it to include they don't have a vested interest in the results of their consultation. This dovetails perfectly with what I'm talking about with regard to the media. When I looked up, one of the examples that I was going to pull up was COVID skeptic doctors, and I entered that as a Google search term, hoping that it would pull me up a list of people like Alex Berenson and Peter McCulloch and Robert Malone. I was looking for a list, and what we got was exactly how the search algorithms manipulate public opinion. I looked up, and this was the exact search term I used: COVID skeptic doctors. And what I got: SIDRAP right up top reports spotlights 52 U.S. doctors who posted potentially dangerous misinformation. Second was Time Magazine. Right-wing doctors keep peddling dubious COVID drugs. Third was the Mayo Clinic. Debunking myths about COVID-19. I'm not going to deny the expertise of the people at the Mayo Clinic. with regard to the Centers for Disease Control and uh, hell, man, places like CIDRAP, I'm not going to deny that you have some high ranking, well credentialed physicians involved there. The point is, every single one of those subject matter experts had something to gain and had a vested interest in the carrying of a particular narrative. That's not just with COVID. Let's look at what's going on in the Ukraine right now. I'm just going to throw this out because I don't want to get on a whole long tear about it. Right. All the credentials in the world, they're still wrong. Thank you. And Roman perfectly encapsulating the exact place where I was going with that. Their credentials are beyond reproach. What's not beyond reproach is their moral compass. What's not beyond reproach is their moral compass. When you take a look at this crowd, right? And of course, we got Anthony Fauci down in the lower left-hand corner, and the rest of these guys, you can Google every one of them by name if you want to take the time. They all have vested interest in carrying a narrative. But when they are the only subject matter experts that are presented, people are compelled to take them at their word. That's why so many grazers were so easily swayed, because those were the only experts that you saw. These are the dangers of deplatforming. These are the dangers of censorship. These are the dangers of telling people you need to become the media, and then when you become the media, shutting them down if they disagree with you. Peter McCullough, look what they did to him for having the temerity to say that ivermectin works and hydroxychloroquine, when administered early, is an effective treatment. Guess what came out after it was all said and done and they couldn't force vaccines on us anymore? Ivermectin was effective and hydroxychloroquine was an effective treatment if used early. Wow. It's almost like the guy was speaking the truth. If you truly are about a free and open marketplace of ideas, what would have been the harm in saying, we are pushing the vaccine? This doctor sees it differently and says ivermectin. Or even giving a derisive treatment. And it's like, while all the real experts are saying we got to get vaccinated, this guy saying ivermectin works. What a goof. That would have been enough if you were actually speaking the truth. But because you were pushing a narrative, that wasn't good enough. You actually had to deplatform someone. I want to go on the record right now, because this has been the exclusive. This has been the exclusive province of the left. If, for whatever reason, this new administration starts specifically deplatforming people, starts specifically taking government actions, like investigating reporters that didn't agree with the administration. Oh wait, that was Obama. Locking up people for refusing to give up their sources. Oh wait, that was Biden. I will be the first to call out any ham-fisted treatment of journalists by this administration. They know they don't have to. All they need to do is ridicule them. It's working just fine, because fundamentally, people are suckers for the truth. How many times do I need to repeat it? If all of a sudden actions are being taken to censor, I will be the first person to step up ready to scrap over that. Know that in your heart. Same. It won't happen, but hypothetically, right. Exactly. Right. And this is a problem with what we previously understood to be subject matter expert. Consensus equals righteousness. It's amazing how the camps have drifted to either truth or money, and that's exactly what it comes down to. I can't say that I have no respect for Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's not my favorite person. I hear that he was a fairly accomplished wrestler in school, and it's on my MMA bucket list to actually wrestle one round with Dr. Tyson. I don't like the way he criticized the world record skydive. I don't like a whole lot of things about it, but most of all, I don't like the fact that he's playing the gender game. He's playing the gender game, and immediately your credibility goes out the window, bro. Stop it. We're not gonna ignore basic biology for the sake of your popularity expediency. If you let your balls drop and say, "Look, man, biology's biology," then you're really a scientist. And until then, you're a subject matter expert. He's a subject matter expert. All of these people are subject matter experts. What we have to realize is that there are people who are similarly credentialed. There are people who are not similarly credentialed, but just as well researched. Do your homework on them and do your homework on what they are saying rather than the paperwork that they are hiding behind when they are saying it. Do you understand? Now, I'm going to tell you something, not to puff my own pecker here, but by any reasonable definition, I am a subject matter expert in any number of things. What I don't have are diplomas on the wall to back me up on that. Cold War civil defense, subject matter expert. Nuclear arms and their effects. Nuclear strategy. Civil defense as regards nuclear attack. Pandemic weapons and countermeasures thereof. This is stuff I've spent years reading about, devouring everything and assimilating that information thoroughly. I will hold court in a full National Forensics League debate with any damn college graduate who wants to go when it comes to nuclear escalation, strategies of containment that NATO is a part of, anything regarding Ukraine post 2014 and our involvement with Maidan and how we pushed out one leader and installed Poroshenko and the Azov battalion and the Tornado battalions and all the atrocities that were committed against ethnic Russians, plus just the general geographic and demographic history of that entire region. But I'm not John Bolton, so my opinion doesn't matter. I'm not a college graduate, so my opinion doesn't matter. I'm content to understand that, but this gets back to what we're talking about with regard to the media. I'm going to say something, and this is going to, and immediately people are going to dismiss it. Oh, now he's defending a nut job. Alex Jones, subject matter expert in a number of fields. Why? Because he's been doing the research for decades. He's been interviewing people who literally are subject matter experts. He's got them on speed dial. He talks to them constantly. The man is a subject matter expert. But if I were to call, I'd be like, hey, man, Alex Jones is a subject matter expert. People would laugh me right off the face of the planet. Meanwhile, they'll take the word of a Neil deGrasse Tyson, or God forbid, a Bill Nye, who says that men can get pregnant and men can menstruate. Why? Because they've got the credentials. They will take the words of Victoria Nuland about there not being U.S. biolabs in Ukraine because she's a subject matter expert who also happens to have ties to Ukraine ethically and politically and financially. She's the subject matter expert, and she's being presented by the legacy media. Do you understand where the rift is coming? It's not that we are pursuing an alternative set of facts, as they like to saddle us. It's we are pursuing the truth. And if you are bringing an agenda through the mouths of talking heads with vested financial interests, you are not bringing us the truth. This is how we are able to become the media. We are breaking loose. We are doing the things that y'all talk about. The left has always talked about, oh yeah, man, speaking truth to power and stepping away and creating alternative economies and alternative ways, all that. We're actually doing it. We're actually putting it into practice. We need to become the media. We're doing it. We need to step down the military industrial complex. We're doing it. We need to take big pharma's control away of the healthcare industry. We're doing that. All the things that they've thumped their chest about should happen. Military industrial complex has too much power over politics. Yes, it does, and we're dismantling that by stopping wars. Big Pharma has too much control over the healthcare industry, man, because he spent all the money on lobbyists. Right, and we're dismantling that. And we're sticking RFK at the forefront. Oh my God. How incredible is that? What a great time to be alive. We're seriously booting Big Pharma out of the picture and taking away a ton of their political power. And where are you now? No, not like that. I don't care about ideologies. I care about results. I care about getting it done. We're doing it. We are taking the culture back. We want our military to be rough and ready and efficient and get out of being a social club and bowing to DEI. We're doing that with you, without you, or over the top of you. We're doing that. We want to end unnecessary wars for empire. We're doing that. With you, without you, or over the top of you, we are doing that, despite your best efforts. Which segues perfectly into bullet point number 3, noble cause corruption. And I'll just give you the dictionary definition of that. Noble cause corruption is when someone uses unethical or illegal means to achieve a goal that they believe benefits the greater good. Now, usually that is applied to law enforcement. Okay. When people talk about it in day-to-day conversation, if they talk about it in day-to-day conversation, noble cause corruption comes up with regard to law enforcement. You know the guy's guilty. You can't prove it, so you fabricate evidence. Unfortunately, that has been expanded into the realms of politics and lawfare now. We can't get Trump on anything legit, so we're going to intellectual gymnastics it to take a misdemeanor that's past the statute of limitations and somehow convolute it into a felony, and then give the jury instructions of, even if you don't feel like he committed this crime, but he committed another crime, you can find him guilty. We're going to accuse him this. We have no proof. We're going to storm in and use our propaganda ministry to say, look at all these top secret covers on all these different files, when in fact that was a photo op and it was entirely staged, and it's come out since they did that. We're going to take away the right for certain people to speak certain opinions. We're going to forbid them to have access to social media platforms. We're going to take away their voice because we don't like what they're using that voice for. We don't like what they're saying. Noble cause corruption is convincing yourself that all of this is okay because we're doing it for the right reasons. The left has adopted this as a maxim and a guideline principle from at least as far back as Saul Alinsky. Go back and read Rules for Radicals. You should. Always read the works of your enemies so you know where they're coming from. If you don't have a copy of Guerrilla Warfare by Che Guevara on your shelf, get one. If you don't have a copy of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky on your shelf, get one. Read it. Delve deep. Noble cause corruption is their stock in trade. No matter what they do, no matter who they kill, no matter what harm they cause, no matter what destruction they wreak on entire cultures, no matter how many people suffer, it's okay because their heart is in the right place. It's Machiavelli dressed up in rainbows and unicorn farts. Seriously, I think that's a perfectly accurate description. Their entire principle, this noble cause corruption, is Machiavelli dressed up in rainbows and unicorn farts, wearing a feather boa at a pride parade with a BLM flag hanging in the background. They don't care because their heart is in the right place. Oh, we totally stepped outside judicial norms and we totally fabricated evidence and we totally persecuted people who were guilty of nonviolent crimes. It doesn't matter because they were enemies of the state and therefore they are fascists and xenophobes and all these other things and therefore they deserved it. Our heart was in the right place. This is how the left has always conducted themselves. My admonition to us is that we have given an electoral mandate as of November the 5th, a serious mandate. Both houses of Congress, in spite of the Senate seats that they still managed to steal, by the way, including Kerry Lakes, we have majorities in both houses of Congress. We have the Oval Office. We won the popular vote. State legislatures swung overwhelmingly red. Governorships have swung overwhelmingly red. The voters have spoken. They have told us what they want. We need to be ready to carry forward for that, and we need to be ready to fight for it because they are going to throw up every roadblock in the world, and we have got to be ready to smash them down. But we cannot, must not make the mistake of confusing justice with retribution. Bad as we may want it, totally justified as we would be in taking it. When I say we are going to take this culture back with you, without you, or if necessary, over the top of you, that is exactly what I mean. But we will not lose our souls in the process. We are done compromising because we know that that is a one-way street. What we will not do is everything that you assigned to us and projected on us that they were doing themselves. We don't need to fabricate legal cases against these people because they have actually broken felony statutes. We don't need to use lawfare. We use law enforcement. And we don't need, getting back to the media thing, to deplatform anyone. We don't need to deplatform anyone because fundamentally, again, people are suckers for the truth. We don't need to deplatform anyone. We put our ideas up, we show the results. We put their ideas up, we show the results. The electorate will be freely allowed to speak. And when those things are allowed to take place, we see what happened on November the 5th. No theft, except for the Senate seats. That came later. No shenanigans. Put our stuff up. We show the results. They put their stuff up. They show the results. We got to see the results of their stuff for 4 years, and the electorate said, enough of this. Enough of this. I'm leaving aside the fact that 2020 was stolen. We all know it, but I'm not even going to dignify that right now. Even independent of that, they saw the results for 4 years. Enough. We're done. It's our turn now. But we cannot get caught in noble cause corruption. We don't need to go extrajudicial because we can own them judicially. We don't need to take away their right to speak. In fact, the best thing that we can do is let them put their ideas out there because of how people are going to react. There's literally no bigger slam on letting them speak for themselves. Libs of TikTok. You guys familiar with that? The woman who founded Libs of TikTok, literally the whole principle of Libs of TikTok is taking videos of them in their own words, saying the things that they believe, and putting it on Twitter and saying, look, these are the things they believe, and they're saying it in their own words. And they sued her for defamation. The last thing we want to do is deplatform anyone. Let them speak. As long as we let them speak freely, we're going to ensure that we will never let those people assume the mantle of power again. So make sure they see their true face. But the biggest thing that we have to do going forward in the opener, I went over that 4-panel, The Course of Empire, right? And I urge you, please do Google that. Please do look it up, Course of Empire. And look at those 4 panels. Because it's taking it through the whole course. I believe, there's a rant that I got on in the car with Charlie on our way home from Auburn the other day. Maybe I'm naive. We all see that course of empire, but we don't differentiate empire from nation. And maybe I'm naive, but I believe that the ideas that the founders had for America have the potential to be the exception. Normally, by the time we get this far along in our descent, there's no calling it back. It's how it was for the Romans. It's how it was for every major empire throughout human history. Once they get to a certain level of degradation, there's no pulling it out of the hole. It becomes irrevocable. It takes on a gravity of its own. But I believe, and you guys can call me naive all you want, I believe that God has blessed this nation. And I believe that he has blessed it so much that we can prove ourselves the historical exception as a nation. In order to do that, we have to separate nation from empire. You understand that when the founders put this nation together, the last thing they wanted was an empire. We had just come out from under the power of an empire in decline. We saw with our own eyes, those founders saw with their own eyes, the corruption of empire, the greed, and everything that is rooted in that course of empire. I believe, and if I'm wrong, guys, feel free to ridicule me. Don't take me. I believe that God's blessings have been on this nation since its founding. I believe the only time that we have lost those blessings is we turn from his face. And I believe that he intervened to take that bullet through the guy's ear rather than the back of his skull. I believe that we were given a chance. I believe that we were given a reprieve. And I believe that we need to step up to that mantle and take charge and bring this culture back and turn our face back to God. and restore some sanity to this place. And I believe in so doing, we can save this nation. But in order to save the nation, we have to be ready to let go of the empire. You guys tracking? We have taken the American experiment. We have taken and tried to carry it to the rest of the world, a world that is fundamentally incompatible with what our founders gave us. Jeffersonian democracy in a Muslim nation? Are you out of your mind? We can no longer afford to be Globocop. Part of the reason why we are suffering so much here is that we have expended so much of our blood and our treasure overseas. We have outsourced a manufacturing base, all for the sake of the American empire. All of the things that turned us from God are rooted in the empire, not the nation. You guys tracking? Stay with me. Trying to impose Jeffersonian democracy on a Muslim nation? Protecting one Muslim nation from another Muslim nation because of the type of Muslim nations prove them incompatible, and we have greed for the resources under the soil of one of those other Muslim nations. What the hell are we doing? Alliance, the one really at the forefront right now. We are allied with a nation that historically is the most corrupt nation on the Russian continent. Always has been. And that coke-addled dwarf running the show right now, we have given him $200 billion in our blood and treasure. And rather than say, thank you, we did the best we could, even though we failed, the arrogance of this prick to stand before our legislature and criticize us for not doing enough. The fact that any American politician would have stood there through those hearings and not said, you know what? Kick rocks, Sparky. We gave you $200 billion. You're on your own. We shouldn't be there in the first place. All of the evil that is undermining this nation is rooted in empire. You guys tracking? We can pull this nation back from the brink, and we've got the right people in place. Thank God we have got the right people in place to do it and the will to carry it forward. But we cannot do that and hang on to the empire. All of the things that are eroding us are rooted in not the nation, but the empire, the greed, the expansionism. Why do we need to project power into Asia? Because China holds most of our debt and produces most of our goods, and that was all outsourced voluntarily because of greed of corporate masters who ran the politicians, and now finally, after generations, no longer are able to establish that hold without consent. We've got people willing to do what everybody's saying needed to be done decades ago, and we're doing it. We can bring that all back home. We are projecting ourselves into battles that we have no stake in. None. For what? Greed for resources? Greed for the Saudis' oil when we've got all of this right under our own feet? Do you realize that Darth Cheeto made us energy independent for the first time in over 50 years? We were a net exporter of energy. Do you understand that? Why do we need to waste our blood and treasure in foreign wars for resources that we already have? Why are we sending it overseas? Because we're building an empire. And what happens to empires? They crash and they burn. We can pull this nation back from the brink. We have the skills, we have the tools, we have the resources, and now, finally, politically, we have the will and the right people in place to do it. What we cannot do is pull the nation back from the brink and hang on to the empire. All of the things that undermine the nation are rooted in our quest for empire, and all of those things are evil. The greed. The greed. All rooted in empire. We let go of the empire, we can save that nation. That doesn't mean that we just keep to ourselves and let bygones be bygones. And when inevitably Muhammad's minions start making moves on Europe again, that we're not ready to jump up and intervene. It's not like that. But this projection of power all over the world while outsourcing our blood, our treasure, our manufacturing base, and enabling the trafficking of our children, all for the sake of empire, all for the sake of empire. We let go of the evil that governs the empire. We can save the good that is intrinsic to the nation. Are you guys tracking? You guys tracking? You feel me here? We turn our face back to God. We let everyone else take care of themselves for a minute, as they did before we came along. Something that we understand on a basic level with personal relationships. If you are no good to yourself, you cannot possibly be any good to anyone else. How am I going to fix you in a relationship if I can't fix me? There's no difference. We are trying to project that empire. We are trying to project that power. We are trying to fix things overseas for people that hate us, while our own country is in a shambles on every level. It's like me trying to fix a woman that hates me, and in the meantime, I'm not working out, and my diet habits have gone to crap, and I'm not going to church. Everything about my life is a shambles. I got hair falling out. Okay, I got teeth falling out. No, you get it. Ultimately, if I want to preserve myself, I have to let that other thing go. And why wouldn't I be willing to let it go? Because that other thing hated me anyway. That other thing not only was bringing about my destruction subconsciously, but overtly by their actions. That is the world right now. That is the world that we are propping up with our empire. We let the empire go. God will help us save this nation. I believe it in my heart of hearts. I am convicted of it in my heart of hearts, and I will put that down in front of anybody. We have an opportunity, a reprieve that we were literally given by the grace of God to turn this thing around. We got 4 years. Do you know what we can do with 4 years, balls, and a spine? This can be a period of glory, not just for the nation, but for the kingdom. This can be a period that they will be talking about in the history books for decades, or it can be the biggest squandered opportunity in human history. What we decide to do with that going forward is going to define who we are as people, is going to define who we are as a nation. So I'll suggest 2 things. Number 1, hit your knees and pray. And number 3, stand up and get busy. Because we're no longer fighting back. Son, we done come up off our heels and we are fighting forward. Own that. Push. Do not relent. And remember, we are going to do this with them, without them, or if necessary, over the top of them. You pick. Either way, I'm here for it. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. God bless you guys for being here, man. I'm going to close with just a short prayer. Lord God, we are going into the Thanksgiving holiday, and I want for all the people here to really, really, really take stock of their blessings, man. This is never about griping about the persecution that's put upon us or the adversities we have to deal with. We need to rejoice in those. Everything's put on us because that's what shapes us. That's what makes us stronger. That's what makes us better warriors for you and for the kingdom, Lord. We need to rejoice in those adversities. But that doesn't mean that we got to go so far into that we forget. Oh, we forget the abundance of blessings that you rain down on us every single day. We're all up against it, Lord. Some of us have family that is going through it right now, and I pray for your protective hand over them and your guidance to those people who are having to nurture those family members. I ask for your protective and guiding hand over all the great men in my circle, the ones who are leading from the front, who are proper servants to the kingdom, Lord. Prayer for any of my brothers in Christ and my sisters in Christ that may be out there hurting. You know their heart, Lord. You know their heart. Speak to it. And Lord, I thank you for what you've done for all of us as individuals, all the blessings that you rained on us, the gifts that you've given us. I thank you for the gifts that you've given us as a nation, Lord. And I thank you for the admonitions and the directives and the anointing and the calling that you've given to us to move forward for the kingdom. May we serve that purpose well, Lord. Help us to find our strength and give us that clarity and discernment always, Lord. Because in times like these, the tricks of the deceiver are out there. The tricks of the adversary are constantly going to be out there trying to lead us astray. They don't have to pull us away from Christ. They just got to pull us back into ourselves. Adversary doesn't ever come at us, hey man, I want you to bow down and serve me. He says, I want you to bow down and serve yourself. And that's enough to get us away from Christ. We got to have discernment to be able to steer away from that, Lord. So I pray for that discernment and clarity with all of these men. You've given us much to be thankful for, Lord. Let us be thankful for it. Let us all rejoice and praise your name, whether it's in times of trial and adversity, whether it's in times that we are blessed, always with every breath, with every moment, to praise your name and to glorify the kingdom and go forward as proper servants, as soldiers for that kingdom. Omnia ad regnum, Lord, all things for the kingdom. I pray in the name of the risen Christ whom I ever serve. Amen. Appreciate y'all being here, man. Thank you. Thank you for coming out on a Tuesday. I hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving, man. It's going to be outstanding. We're here, guys, and we're blessed. Look at that header down at the bottom. Heaven blessed, never stressed. Try to live like that, man. Try to live like that. Anything that's coming your way, and I know that particularly a couple of y'all are really up against it right now, and some of y'all are up against it in ways that very little I have to offer in the ways of words are going to make any difference whatsoever. What I encourage you is to keep your eyes on the Lord. Keep your eyes on the Lord and your faces of Scripture, and you will get through it. Just know that if you are suffering out there, folks, you are in my prayers, for damn sure. I'm going to get on out of here. We'll pass that digital collection plate around. You guys already know the drill, man. I'm on Cash App, Venmo, all that good stuff. Facebook Pay, all the different platforms. If you guys want to chuck me some coin, if anything I did brought anything to you, it's fantastic. I can certainly use the help. But I get it, man. We are heading into the Christmas season, and we are still living with the downside results of a Biden-Harris economy. So I understand if you hadn't got it to go around. I totally get it. Here's what you can do for me, though. You can tell somebody else about the show. Hey, man, fat, toothless, cripple, crane operator with some opinions. Rev gets on, he rants and raves a couple hours every Sunday. Maybe you get something out of it. Pass the program along to them. But above and beyond all of that, Something you can do not just for me, but for yourselves. What is it? Stone. Live the three. Live the three. Hell's he talking about live the three? Let me tell you about the three. It's the three prime directives here on planet Bart, man. The signal to noise ratio is all messed up, and they will try to bury you in that. They will try to bury you in the noise, all the nonsense, all the confusion and distraction. You got to be that signal, the important stuff, the truth, to punch through the other side of that noise. You got to be that light in a world full of darkness. And I don't mean just a light that holds up bright enough to be seen from the other side. I mean, sometimes you've got to have the power to carry that light through the darkness, punch it through to the other side, carry it through a long and enduring darkness so that other people can see that light. But most of all, and above all things, talking about rule number 3, the iron rule. The iron rule, strength in a world full of weakness. And I'm not just talking about this kind of strength, this kind of strength. That's all important, man. But I'm talking about strength here and here and here. Going forward, we're going to need some of that, y'all. We're blessed, but we're going to need that strength going forward. Why is strength the most important? Because without the strength, none of the rest of it matters. Without strength, you're not going to have the punch to get that signal through to the other side of that noise or the voice to speak it. Without strength, you will not have the endurance to carry that light through a long-lasting darkness or to punch that light through to the other side of the fog so that other people can see the light. So strength above all, because without it, nothing else matters. And when you pray, guys, strength, clarity, and discernment always. We're going to need that clarity, man, because we are fundamentally suckers for the truth, but that truth gets harder and harder to find. And remember, you got the father of lies out there just dying to catch you slipping and trip you up. So pray for that discernment. Hit your knees, people. Put your face in some scripture. And remember, guys, Boss Man's got the plan. Carpenter's got our back. Spoiler alert, I read the book. We win. Remember that. Meantime, between time, happy Thanksgiving. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We'll see you next week, man. God bless each and every one of you, man. Thank you so much for being here and for being a part of this whole journey. God bless you all. Take care. Peace.